Imagine if I told you that everything you believe to be true about the serpent in the book of Genesis is mistaken. That the tale of Adam and Eve conceals an astonishing secret that could entirely transform your interpretation. Prepare yourself, for what you are about to learn is considerably more intriguing and enigmatic than any narrative you have previously encountered. The story of Adam and Eve set in the Garden of Eden is among the most celebrated accounts in the Bible. At the core of this narrative lies the figure of the serpent, which, through its actions, led Eve to partake of the forbidden fruit and thereby triggered the downfall of humankind. Conventionally, this serpent has been interpreted as a literal snake, often depicted as a sly, deceptive creature whose purpose was to seduce and lead humanity astray. But what if we have misinterpreted this character all along? In this exploration, we delve deep into the original Hebrew version of Genesis, uncovering a concealed truth that challenges the widespread interpretation. By the end of our journey, you will be presented with a refreshed perspective on this ancient story, one enriched with insights that could fundamentally alter our understanding of these seminal biblical events. The book of Genesis, recognized as the first book of the Bible, is a cornerstone text for both Judaism and Christianity. Traditionally, this book is ascribed to Moses and contains narratives that have influenced religious thought for thousands of years. The account of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden is especially significant because it addresses themes such as purity, temptation, and the very essence of the human condition. Grasping the authentic nature of the characters within this story is essential for a profound understanding of its underlying message. To truly comprehend the nature of the serpent, it is necessary to return to the original Hebrew text of Genesis. In chapter 3, verse 1, the serpent is introduced using the Hebrew term Naash. In most English Bible translations, this term is rendered as serpent or snake. However, the Hebrew language is rich and complex, and Naash carries layers of meaning that extend well beyond a straightforward translation. While it indeed can denote a serpent, the term Naash also encompasses other connotations in certain contexts. It can describe a diviner or an individual skilled in enchantments. This additional nuance invites us to consider a very different interpretation of the serpent's true identity. Rather than simply being a snake, Naash might imply the presence of a being endowed with supernatural insight or powers. For many centuries, scholars have debated the authentic nature of the serpent. Some maintain that Naash should be viewed symbolically, representing a force of disorder or even a rebellious divine entity. Others propose that the serpent was never meant to be seen as a literal reptile at all, but rather as a symbolic figure, possibly even a fallen angel or an incarnation of Satan. One prominent theory posits that the serpent embodies the archetype of a divine rebel, not unlike Prometheus in Greek mythology, who defies the established order to bring enlightenment and knowledge to humanity. Seen in this light, the serpent is not simply a deceiver, but is also portrayed as a complex being who plays a dual role, a tempter on one hand and an illuminator on the other. Let us now consider several alternative interpretations of the serpent's identity, taking into account the richer meaning of Naash. One interpretation suggests that the serpent may have been a divine entity, possibly a lesser god or even a demigod. This view resonates with the mythology of the ancient Near East, where serpents were frequently linked with wisdom and even immortality. In various ancient cultures, serpents were not solely symbols of treachery. They were also revered for their association with profound knowledge and power. For instance, in Mesopotamian mythology, the deity Ninga was connected to both vegetation and the underworld, and he was often depicted either as a serpent or as possessing serpentine characteristics. Similarly, in Egyptian mythology, the cobra was emblematic of the goddess Wadjet, symbolizing protection and royal authority. These cultural parallels suggest that the serpent in Genesis might be reinterpreted as a being of extraordinary wisdom and influence. Its temptation of Eve, not merely an act of deceit, but rather a complex exchange involving divine insight and human free will. Another possibility is to see the serpent as an embodiment of chaos. In many ancient traditions, the serpent represented disorder, unpredictability, and the forces that upend established order. Within the Genesis account, the serpent might be interpreted as a symbol of disruptive energy, a force that challenges divine order and tests human obedience. This interpretation is bolstered by the serpent's pivotal role in prompting Adam and Eve's disobedience, thereby introducing chaos into what was once a harmonious Eden. In various mythologies, serpents are often portrayed as manifestations of primordial chaos. For example, Babylonian myths describe a chaotic creature known as Tiamat, a serpent or dragon-like entity embodying the forces of disorder that the god Marduk had to defeat in order to establish creation. Similarly, in Norse mythology, the world-threatening Midgard serpent, Jormungandr, symbolizes the perennial struggle between order and chaos. Viewed through this lens, the Genesis serpent can be seen as an agent of disorder, one that challenges the balance between order and chaos, a theme that recurs in many creation myths. A third interpretation casts the serpent as a metaphorical figure, a symbol of the internal conflict between adhering to divine commandments and the pursuit of forbidden knowledge. According to this perspective, the serpent represents the intrinsic human desire to transcend limitations and to explore the boundaries of the unknown. The act of consuming the forbidden fruit, then, is not merely a rebellious violation of divine law, but also a profound assertion of human agency and curiosity. In this sense, the serpent symbolizes the eternal struggle between conformity and the yearning for enlightenment. This reading aligns with various philosophical and literary traditions that grapple with the concept of forbidden knowledge. For example, in John Milton's epic poem Paradise Lost, Satan, often depicted in a serpentine form, tempts Eve by tapping into her desire for wisdom and independence. In much the same way, the myth of Prometheus in Greek lore, who defies the god to bestow the gift of fire and knowledge upon mankind, echoes this duality of defiance and enlightenment. Re-envisioning the serpent as more than just a literal snake enriches our understanding of the Genesis narrative. If we regard the serpent as a divine rebel or as a symbol of cosmic chaos, the story evolves into a much more intricate tapestry of divine-human interaction, a tale about the relentless quest for knowledge, and an exploration of the tension between established order and creative disruption. With this new perspective, the familiar story of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden is transformed. Rather than casting the serpent solely as a sinister deceiver, we can view it as a catalyst that propels humanity towards self-awareness and intellectual liberation. The decision to eat the forbidden fruit thus becomes emblematic of the monumental shift from innocence to enlightenment, from unthinking obedience to the exercise of free will and critical thought. This reinterpretation has significant theological implications. It compels us to question long-held beliefs about the nature of temptation, the role of divine intervention in human affairs, and the inherent complexities of our own existence. Could it be that the serpent's influence was not an unadulterated act of malevolence, but rather a necessary element in humanity's evolution? Was the pursuit of knowledge, even if it entailed the risk of disobedience, an indispensable step in our developmental journey? For modern believers and scholars alike, this alternative reading of the serpent invites a re-examination of biblical texts with renewed curiosity and open-mindedness. It highlights the importance of studying ancient languages and cultural contexts to fully appreciate the layered meanings embedded within these age-old scriptures. Let us return, then, to the very beginnings of the Genesis narrative. In Genesis 3 verse 1, the text describes the serpent as more cunning than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. In this declaration, the Hebrew word often translated as cunning suggests not only craftiness, but also a high degree of intelligence and subtlety. If we interpret Nash as referring to a divine or semi-divine entity, then this cleverness could indicate a deeper understanding of divine matters, positioning the serpent not merely as a trickster, but as a being possessing a sophisticated grasp of heavenly knowledge. As the narrative unfolds in Genesis 3 verses 4 to 5, the serpent makes the bold proclamation, "You will not surely die, for God knows that in the day you eat of it your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." Here, the serpent is not just deceiving Eve, it is offering her, and by extension, humanity, a glimpse of divine wisdom. The promise of attaining godlike insight implies that the serpent's words were not entirely false, but rather carried a kernel of truth, albeit one fraught with unforeseen consequences. Later, in Genesis 3 verse 22, God observes that the man has become like one of us, knowing good and evil, and takes steps to prevent him from consuming the fruit of the tree of life. This dramatic turn underscores the idea that, through the serpent's intervention, humanity has acquired a fragment of divine knowledge, a double-edged gift that brings both enlightenment and hardship. Thus, The serpent's role in Genesis is rendered not as a one-dimensional villain, but as a multifaceted figure, one whose actions precipitated a pivotal transformation in human history. Whether viewed as a divine emissary, a harbinger of chaos, or a symbolic representation of internal human conflict, the serpent compels us to re-examine a narrative that has long been taken for granted. It challenges us to ponder whether the quest for wisdom, even when it comes at the cost of losing an unblemished innocence, might be an essential aspect of human development. As we reflect on these alternative interpretations, it becomes evident that the story of Adam and Eve can be seen in a new light. Rather than a simple tale of sin and punishment, the narrative transforms into a complex exploration of divine interaction, the tension between order and disorder, and a human thirst for knowledge. This fresh perspective not only broadens our theological horizons, but also enriches our understanding of an ancient text that continues to influence contemporary thought. Moreover, for believers seeking to deepen their faith or for those embarking on a spiritual journey, this reimagined interpretation offers a wealth of insights. It encourages us to look beyond surface-level readings of sacred texts and to engage with the deeper symbolism and cultural nuances that underpin these ancient stories. By exploring the layered meanings of words like Naash and considering the broader historical and mythological context, we open ourselves up to a richer, more nuanced conversation about spirituality, destiny, and the very nature of knowledge. In conclusion, the figure of the serpent in Genesis is far more than a mere animal or an emblem of evil. It may be seen as a divine agent, a symbol of cosmic disruption, or a metaphor for the internal conflict that defines the human spirit. Each interpretation brings with it a wealth of implications for how we understand not only this particular biblical episode, but also the broader themes of enlightenment, free will, and the eternal struggle between order and chaos. As we continue to study these timeless narratives, let us remain open to the possibility that the lessons hidden within them are as multifaceted and complex as the history of human thought itself. Embracing this deeper understanding may ultimately lead us to a more enlightened and spiritually enriched life.